Okay, everybody, we are going to go ahead and get started. Want to thank everyone so much for joining us this morning. I'm hoping everyone is having a productive morning so far. My name is Lauren Zak. I'm the Director of Account Development here at Concept. Again, I wanted to thank everyone for joining, and I do want to apologize for some of the technical issues that we've been faced with this morning and leading up to today's event. In all honesty, we were hoping it would be a win if we had around 20 or 50 salespeople join us this morning. We've had an overwhelming demand. A whopping 429 salespeople are on the line with us this morning. We're super thrilled that number has risen so quickly over the last few days, and we're really happy that we're going to be able to bring some helpful training and tips to you guys as things are changing in our day-to-day work environment. Many of the members who are joining today are current customers of Concept. We want to thank you so much for your business and your partnership. Many are prospects and dealers who haven't worked with us before. We want to thank you for your attendance and the opportunity to meet with you today. I also want to give a big shout out to Mahida for helping us to spread the word for today's event. We've been a member for several years, and we really appreciate the continued education and support from Mahida. So why are we all here today? Why is this happening now of all times? So, you know, clearly our lives have all been flipped upside down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Personal life has changed. Business in our industry has changed, maybe forever. It's an uncertain time. It's a challenging time. Many of us are now working remote, if not all of us working remote. And so we need to find additional ways to stay productive, keep selling, and that's really the purpose of our training today. We're going to go into it later on in this training, but you know, this is a good time to kind of hone in on some different skill sets that you might have without being opportunistic. Your customers and your prospects that are up and running need your help, and when they do get back up and running, they will need your help. And so we're hoping that some of the training that we'll provide you with today will not only help inside of working remote in this pandemic situation that we're in, but that you'll be able to carry it on in your day-to-day. So my name is Lauren Zak. Like I said, I'm the Director of Account Development here at Concept. I've been with our company 5.5 years and started my career making cold calls on behalf of a customer of ours in the material handling space. Over the course of the last 5 years, my tenure, I've risen through account management positions and ultimately landed where I am today. I'm a business development and sales enablement consultant. I oversee our customer-facing team here, and I work to expand and keep business with key accounts and networks. And you know, we support several industries here at Concept under the supply chain umbrella, but my focus and my passion has really been on material handling. And over the last 5 years, I've traveled across the country. If anybody knows me, my suitcase is pretty much always packed. I've been on over 100 trips in those 3 years. I'm finally starting to see some of that benefit from frequent flyer miles, but I'm visiting equipment dealers, distributors, systems integrators, software, automation, robotics, pretty much anything inside of material handling. And when I'm visiting these folks, I'm meeting with sales and marketing leaders and dealer development and owner management. And really, we're trying to improve revenue generation and market share. And so I'm excited to be here today. I'm going to introduce you to my co-host, Jason Wisener, who is our Director of Production.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, Jason Wisener, the Director of Production here at Concept. My journey began at Concept in 2012, 8 years ago. Started off sales development, moved my way through training, played in account management for a bit, then landed as the Director of Production. And essentially what I do, I oversee the training and production of 60+ sales development representatives, in which many of them work with material handling dealerships across the country. And us too, we've been impacted by this COVID. And 3 weeks ago, we worked at an office just south of Cleveland, Ohio. So we moved. We all are now remote staff, and I can kind of see what you guys are going through today. And I know that the current climate may have changed some of your responsibilities, or at least shifted how you're going about your day to day. So I'm excited that we can take our experience and our process and share that with you during these times to help you sell and be a resource during this time.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. So we're going to jump right in. We got a lot of information to cover today. Our agenda, we're going to give you a brief history of who we are, just so you have a good understanding as to why we're hosting today. But really the focus and the majority of our conversation is going to be focused around preparing to make your calls and then actually making the call itself. So first, just want to take a quick moment to talk about who Concept is. Like Jason says, we're based in the Cleveland, Ohio area, Medina, Ohio. What you can see is a picture of our beautiful 27,000 square foot facility that's sitting vacant currently. But we were founded in 2002. We are an outsourced B2B sales development, marketing, and CRM agency firm. And really, our services are pretty wide and vast in terms of the customer life cycle. But for the purposes of today, we're going to, of course, be focusing on prospecting. But we do outbound sales development and appointment setting. We manage inbound leads that are coming through from marketing and trade shows and qualifying those. We're a Salesforce and a HubSpot partner and consultant. So we do design and implementation work for many of our partners and then help managers and salespeople adapt to CRM systems. We do sales development training. Obviously, that's what you're in today. And then we also have a wide range of digital marketing services. And so, a lot of our work when we are initially founded as an organization was focused on kind of this mid-funnel activity, qualifying leads and getting those leads in the hands of salespeople. As our relationships and as our partnerships have grown, as the market and the need for marketing inside of capital equipment has changed, we have really opened up our services to kind of cast a wider net of interest, right? So we're trying to capture as many prospects and visitors that we can through ad campaigns to your website, but then those are not qualified enough. So we're then taking them through what we would have done years ago in qualifying those leads all the way down to an opportunity. And so really the focus of today is that lower level part of the funnel. But I would encourage you as you guys have some time to get to have a, more of an understanding of what is lead generation, what is your marketing team doing to support you, how can you get more involved in getting leads, and it's all about driving to ROI. We're a sales company, we work for other sales organizations, we get it. If there's not a return on investment, it's really not worthwhile. Return on investment could be a marketing firm, it could be a campaign that you're running internally, it could be a salesperson, it could be your CRM. At the end of the day, you have to see some return. You didn't implement it to continue to stay the same, to continue the same amount of money, and that's really our philosophy here at Concept. So just to give you a brief overview of what we've done inside of material handling, we have been in this industry for about 17 years. We play heavily, like I said, with forklift dealers and distributors, as well as the manufacturer. And so we've been able to gather an understanding from our wide array of customers as to the industry itself. And additionally, our own education and working with partners like Mahita as well. And so just to kind of give you an idea as to the numbers that we put up on a yearly basis for forklift dealers specifically, about 13,000 leads annually. It's about 2,500 leads per month that are getting into the hands of the salespeople that we work with. And our team is making about 35,000 calls a week. And that is just a portion of our business development team at Concept. But we wanted to give you a highlight of that as you say, who are these random people that I've potentially never met before in Ohio telling me about how to prospect and do work inside of my industry. So we wanted to give you some perspective as to who we are. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason here in a moment, but the call itself, is honestly very simple if you break it up and you focus on each individual piece of prospecting. And the goal of today is to talk about how to get decision makers on the phone and how to find their needs in a way that is not opportunistic, not shirky, not a lead or need approach where you're going in and just trying to sell them something today. And so we're going to break it up and go over the first portion here with call preparation. I'm going to turn it over to Jason to get us started here.
So inside of the call preparation today, one, I will mention that what I've seen working with sales reps in the past, there's the thought of, I'm just going to pick up the phone and go. I just want to mention that preparing for the call is just as important as the call itself. So we're going to cover the KPIs, the numbers behind it, who to call, leveraging a CRM, leveraging account profile information, pipeline building management, and the final checklist before we actually dive into the call itself. The number side of it, prospecting by numbers. And I know we've all heard this. Phone calling, it's a numbers game, and it truly is. And I want to share with you what Concept does, which each of my employees, what they do on a day-to-day basis. And keep in mind, this is dedicated calling 8 hours. Every single day, I hold my employees, each person accountable for 80 to 100 calls per day. And what we found, and this is 17 plus years experience in material handling, is a 15% completed call ratio. And what that means is that out of my 80 to 100 calls per day, I'm speaking to 10 to 15 decision makers. And in 17 years of experience, we found that if I do speak to 10 to 15 decision makers, I'm going to close 25% of that, right? Which equals to 3 to 4 sales qualified leads or appointments generated per day. And on average, I mean, it's a mix of different types of opportunities inside of that. So out of those 3 to 4 opportunities or sales qualified leads that we're generating, it's a mix of trucks, it's a mix of units, service parts, warehouse, allied. And I know many of you are probably looking at that numbers going, 80 to 100 calls. I don't know if I could do that. And I get it. You guys have so many things to do as a sales rep, right? I mean, you're trying to stick with current customers and stay in front of them, especially during this time. What I'm encouraging you to do, the first thing, is figure out what your own personal KPIs are by the hour. So if you could do 20 to 25 calls, if you could set uninterrupted, dedicated time for 2 hours, do 20, 25 calls, and I could guarantee you, you're going to get at least one appointment, one webinar per day.
Yeah. And so there's really no secret sauce. And I get that question a lot, especially when I'm out visiting with our prospects. And they'll say, Lauren, why is Concept so much better? Well, I'm not going to get into that today because this is not a sales call, but it's a combination of what we do. We have the right tactics, we have the right processes, the right training, the right technology. But at the end of the day, like Jason said, it comes down to discipline. So setting yourself a KPI, especially at a time like now, when you're finding yourself potentially pretty challenged as to how to stay in front of your customers, set yourself a goal, whether that be 25 calls a day, 10 calls a day, 10 calls an hour, if you're really going after it. This is your time to dig in.
So the first part, we started off with the KPIs, understanding, well, what do I have to do from the number side? Well, I have to make phone calls. And I think many of you could kind of do the math of, well, how much data do I need? And that really comes to this component here. New customers, who do I call? So I know how many calls I need to make. And I know many of you probably have a really, really good system of working with some of your current customers and stay in front of them. However, a lot of you may feel like from cold calling door to door old school way, but however, I've seen a lot of people not really prepared from a data standpoint to generate new business. So outside of your current customers, there's various different things you could leverage to help you target more data. And that starts with target accounts, your wish list accounts, right? Leads from marketing. And I challenge each of you that if you have a component from marketing that's driving leads to you, get an understanding of the content of where that lead is coming from. Meaning, is it coming from a rental email blast? Is it coming from a used truck email blast? That way you have more of a warm conversation. EDA. I know many of us look at EDA and go, well, those are people that just bought something. I just missed them. However, when I work with dealerships, you shouldn't be looking at who just bought. You should be looking at the trends. That helps you find targeted companies to call. What I mean trends is I want to look at these specific companies 3, 4, 5, 6 years back and get an idea of how that company is buying. Is that typically a company that buys every 2, 3 years? I know I can call them. Lease expirations. I mean, you guys should have on file of customers of leases that are expiring within 6 months, 12 months. Then the final platform you use is data list, right? For true cold calling. The DMBs, the Hoovers, the Info USAs. And what this allows you to do is procure data based on SIC codes, essential companies, size of companies, and really have a targeted focus there.
Yeah. And we know right now that, with the current state, checking on your current customers is really important. And that is your forte. That is what you do best as salespeople. We're a prospecting organization. We do call current customers to try to increase share of wallet. We do call current customers to gauge their level of satisfaction. But what we're going to go over today does apply to your current customers. So that is absolutely a lead source for you to focus on right now, especially those that are in essential businesses, to check in on them. And we're going to talk a little bit later in the training on what the differences are in calling a current customer versus calling a prospect. But data has to go somewhere. This is something we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on. We know this is a sticky subject, not the most favorite subject of many of our partners and many salespeople that we meet. But we do just want to take a brief moment, if you do have a CRM, to talk about how you can utilize it, and we're going to move on from there pretty rapidly.
So the first thing we looked at was, okay, I need to make X calls. The second thing is, well, who do I call? Where do I get the data? And to Lauren's point, we have to have something in place to manage and monitor that progression of data. And as Lauren mentioned, CRM is probably not a fun subject. So one of the things I want to mention, whether you're using a CRM, whether you're using a black book, whether you're using a spreadsheet, I want you to at least a takeaway from this is how to actually manage that data regardless of whatever platform you're using. And my first advice is have some sort of account segmentation or staging. And what that is labeling specific accounts based off of the type of conversation you had with that specific account. Meaning, how are you separating the people you know who are the decision makers that you haven't had a conversation with? How are you separating the accounts that you've had conversations with? The marketing intelligence, the account profile. Second tip, how do you know what's at their facility? Do I know they have 15 trucks, 10 trucks, 5 trucks? What type of trucks? Who's the competition? Have a place to track those things. Activity, conversation logging. I know it's tough to do this and it's more admin work, but imagine you have a conversation with someone and you want to revisit this account or company a month, 2 months from now. It's good to go back and look at that and see the previous conversation notes that you had. And that goes into the future follow-up tasking, so you know when to call them, right? Then lastly, opportunity management. How am I tracking progression of each opportunity that I'm generating? I generated this opportunity. How do I know I'm working it? How do I know that I actually quoted? How do I know there was a demo, right? So the takeaway again is, regardless of what you're using, have something that's in place that's allowing you to really just paint that picture of that company.
Yeah. And I could talk about CRM all day. I'm a power user. It's the lifeblood of our business. We need it to be organized to stage, to keep in front of thousands and thousands and thousands of accounts inside of material handling. But what I will say today is, you don't want to hear me talk about it for the next hour, is that if you do have a CRM and you've been avoiding learning it, now's the time. When else are you going to be sitting in front of your computer? When else is your day on the road slightly augmented or significantly augmented by not being able to go into facilities? So I would encourage you to take the time, go back on those trainings from your dealer, your company, reach out to those who can help you to get up and running. So when you do get on the road, it's easier. It's going to keep you organized. It's going to promote process. It's going to make you more efficient and more effective by all means. So inside of CRM, Jason talked a little bit about Intel, and this is something, again, that we'll be covering later in the call when we're actually talking about the call itself. But Jason, want to just walk through a few examples here of how you can log things in your CRM or in your Black Book or in your Excel document.
Yeah, and this is just a great example of just coming back to my Excel, to the spreadsheet, the Black Book, or whatever you have, and showing the power of what good management, or at least give you an idea of what happened with that account last time. This one, we could come back to this account and say, all right, I see that they have 15 clerks out there. They buy new. Their next purchase date is this. I see they have a class 1 and class 4. I know who the contacts are. I look at all my conversation. I can see all the notes. I can see the purchasing time frame. So I think this is just a great example, just to follow up what we just recapped, the importance of how to track and manage the data.
Yeah, and right now, this is especially important for strategic list use if you do have it, thinking about the SICs that are essential, that are seeing an influx in business. We're talking about food, bev, pharma, logistics, packaging, essential manufacturers. If you have that information in your CRM, utilize it. It will make you more efficient. You'll call places that are open versus places that are closed. And feel free to contact us later on with questions regarding some of those SICs and industry filters so we can help you out there. So we need to now move into making the call itself. But before we make a call, or in preparation for making a call, we have to identify the right person to call. We might know the company, but we need to identify the decision maker. Jason.
Yeah, and really there's two types of decision makers, and you guys know this, right? There's that person that signs the final check, and there's that person that maybe makes the recommendation. However, there's 4 different avenues you could take to identify that contact or that name you need. And the most fearful but fastest avenue is the gatekeeper or receptionist, right? That's the easiest thing. I pick up a phone call and ask for someone that's in charge of equipment, or that oversees the maintenance or the operations of the warehouse. The second is phone directories. A lot of companies are starting to use automated phones. It makes it a little bit easier when you can call and be transferred or hit 4 for maintenance or purchasing. But if that's not listed, there's other different tactics or ways you could go about that, right? You can accidentally go to maybe the billing department. Oh, sorry, I was actually trying to get a hold of someone over there in maintenance that oversees the forklifts. You just enlisted their help. That's a strategy to use. The third way is LinkedIn. And I think that everybody knows LinkedIn. Everybody uses that to keep it's almost an online resume, but they keep their job title fresh on LinkedIn. And I know sometimes we may struggle with that where we can't find specific people, but one of the tips and one of the tricks we teach our sales development representatives at Concept is you could go to Google, you could type in a specific title, you could put in the company name, and just type LinkedIn at the end of it. A lot of times, at least 9 times out of 10, that comes up in the search results. Then the last part is Google itself. I could go to a website and potentially look at a contact. I can look at newspaper articles that were posted. I can do that research via Google.
The big point to take away from this slide is don't focus too much on the research. In some of the other industries that we play in C-level, high-end supply chain accounts, there is a lot of research that goes into actually getting into that organization. And it might be for some of your higher target accounts. But as you're starting to call, as Jason said, make that call first. Expedite the process. Don't get too caught up on the research portion of it until you actually need to.
I think as we look at this next slide, everybody sees the meme. I can picture everybody going, yeah, I can relate to that one right there. And I mentioned the previous slide, and I know Lauren kind of echoed that, but calling the gatekeeper is the fastest way, period. I can pick up the phone and ask for someone in charge. However, people avoid it because of this right here, the objection side with the gatekeeper. They aren't in. What is this regarding? I don't know who you can speak with. And we broke this down into essentially 3 different ways or 3 different tactics to get past the gatekeeper. And I'm challenging you to as I provide these examples, to figure out which tactic or which way works for you, because one tactic may work for someone, but not the other person. The first one is control the conversation, always lead. And I know everybody knows that in sales. That's one of the biggest things, but they aren't in. Well, when do you expect them in? I'm leading that call. What is this regarding? It's regarding forklifts, who oversees the maintenance. I don't know who you speak. I don't know who you need to speak with. Well, I typically speak to someone over in maintenance or purchasing who oversees the forklifts. Can you transfer me there? The second one is enlist their help. Maybe you could help me out with this. I'm really not sure who to speak with. And lastly, befriend them. Smile, laugh, use their name. A gatekeeper can be your biggest resource. They know when the decision maker goes to lunch. They know when they get into the office. They know when they're actually sitting down at their office. And I know that the gatekeeper can be frustrating because I know many of you, maybe call someone, they just give up right after that. If it's not an opportunity, if it's not a lead, if I'm not quoting, it was a loss. I challenge you on that. Every call you make is grabbing a puzzle piece to really just paint a picture of that operation. So even if you get to a gatekeeper and you get a decision maker's name and it doesn't go anywhere, that's big. That's part of the puzzle piece. Now imagine the call being different. The first call, it's not I'm calling who oversees the material handling or the forklifts. My next call is, hey, good morning, Diane. Is John Smith available? It's becoming warmer. We're progressing that specific company.
Yeah, gatekeepers can certainly be foe, but they can be your friend. It's a good idea at this point to start to befriend those folks, even asking them how many lift trucks they have. Hey, I'm not sure if you know Diane, but how many forklifts do you guys run? Oh, I have no idea. Okay, well, we tried, but she might be able to say, oh, I think we've got about 5. Okay, so now we have a better understanding of how to work that account in from a fleet segmentation perspective, and it's really important to take advantage of those calls. So, hey, we've got the decision maker potentially, their name, we've overcome the objections from the gatekeeper. We've got to start building a pipeline. This is still in the call preparation part, and then in a moment here, we're going to jump right into the actual call itself with the decision maker. But building a pipeline is really important to any salesperson, especially when they're feeling fallout in their current pipeline. This is something that you're going to have to do now, unfortunately, but it's something that you should continue to do as business starts to resume as normal or close to normal, because it's really about finding opportunity in the future and managing to that, so you don't have to start every single month or every single quarter with a clean slate and starting from scratch. So Jason, do you want to talk a little bit more about why we manage pipelines and how we do it?
Well, I want to start off with, it's something that holds true today, and you guys can see that there by Dan Harsh. It's not about closing the sales today. It's about building a pipeline for tomorrow. And that's something that means something to everybody here at Concept today. And I remember when I was in sales development, I used to say this to my manager all the time. He'd ask, how's next month look for you? And I'd go to him, I'd go, you know what? I never had to find an appointment. My leads are there every single month. They're queued up for me. So what I mean by that, and Lauren kind of hit the nail on the head saying we're trying to build a pipeline for tomorrow. Yes, I'm getting names and I'm progressing the account by getting names of the decision makers' contact information. But when I got someone on the phone, my goal every single call would be to get 2 to 3 different timeframes from one specific company. Meaning, when I got someone on the phone, I broke them down. I wanted to know how many forklifts they have, but how often are they replacing? When is that next time they're replacing that unit? Do they have PO set up in place? When is that contract up? Do they rent? Is there a busy time? Is there a certain time frame when they rent? Right? And that's really the goal of pipeline building. So again, if you're sitting back saying, man, I didn't get a lead today, you want to be able to set up the next 6-7 months where you come in here from now, there's 5-6 companies that you know is doing something this month. So I challenge each of you today that once you do pick up this phone, focus on this. Set yourself up for tomorrow.
Yeah. And, there's quite a lot in terms of the setup. And so we wanted to prepare you guys with a checklist. We've covered a lot in the prep. This should keep you straight. It's really important that you're focusing on the goal of the call. What are you trying to do? And Jason said what you should be trying to do is 1, check in on your customer or prospect, but 2, get those next purchase timelines. Do you have an agenda written for you? Now's the time to prepare yourself, an outline, just even some notes just to remember some of the things that you'll learn today in our training, and we're going to help you out with that. But we're going to be moving into the meat and the potatoes of the call. And really, once you get that decision maker on the line, we're going to be breaking that down into a few components right here. So effective introductions, navigating the conversation, closing for a next step, and common pitfalls. Um, Making cold calls is not rocket science, but it's super scary sometimes to those who don't do it often, to those who are new to the industry, to those who haven't called prospects in a while and have really only been focusing on customers. And so having some structure is important. Not everybody can wing it. And of course, there's good anxiety that comes with doing something that you don't do very often. But being as prepared as you can is going to really set yourself up for success once you do get that decision maker on the line. And so we're going to break it down for you right now in terms of the introduction.
And I know many of you are looking at this next screen as, well, that's not rocket science. Well, this part isn't. We define the call in 3 components: introduction, conversation, close. Right? And I think the goal of this, and you guys know this, let's get the prospect talking, be a resource to these guys, and don't overthink. We have to keep it simple. So the first thing we're going to start into is really just the introduction side of it. Yeah. And inside of the introduction, there's 4 components: introduce yourself, purpose, credibility, customers. I know many of you are sitting back going, yeah, that seems pretty simple. I've worked with so many sales reps over the years and inside sales development representatives. And what I found is when people, or at least what we're trained to do, is when we call, we introduce ourselves and we go into credibility first. What I mean by that, or defining credibility, I'm telling you about who my company is, products, or service. I did research on the human brain when it comes to phone calls. And what I found is that someone will make a decision on who you are within 12 to 15 seconds of what you're calling. So what's making you different than the other callers? How am I getting them actually mentally engaged with my conversation? Every rep calls and they go, hey, this is who I am. I'm with this dealership. We sell this, this, this. You sounded exactly like the other 5, 6 representatives that called. So what we did as a company, we put purpose in front of that credibility side. So we're introducing ourselves and we're telling them the purpose of the call. And the goal of that is to get them engaged in the conversation. This is Jason over at Concept. Really just wanted to get an idea of your operation today and see if we could be a resource for you. And back in their mind, we're 10 to 12 seconds in after that. They're going, well, who are you guys? And once that point hits, once that light bulb goes off, they're sold. Now I can go into credibility. Well, Concept is this. Then I engage that customer with an open-ended question.
Yeah. We're going to go over open-ended questions next as we get into the discovery portion of the call. But, an introduction is really important, as Jason said, because of how quickly those prospects and customers even are judging your call and the reason for your call. So important tips to remember: be clear, be concise, be yourself. Confidence is so important here. Speaking off of a script, calling in fear, folks can hear that on the other line. So be confident in yourself. You're calling to be a resource. Right now, I've heard a lot of salespeople, as we've done some trainings over the last couple of weeks, apologizing for calling because they know everybody's busy. Well, if you're apologizing for calling, it's first of all not starting off the conversation that great, because you're digging yourself into a hole. You're basically telling them, don't give me the time. But calling today, you're calling with a purpose, and it's really to share empathy. It's to share empathy and check in and see how you can be of service to them. And being sharky, like I said, that's a misconception that folks have about salespeople. I know that for sure. But don't make them feel the pressure. You're pressured. Everyone's pressured. This call is not to add more pressure to their plate. It's to alleviate pressure. So going in with that empathy and that purpose is so important right now. And of course, you got to recognize tempo and tone. In person, we get to see those, those physical characteristics and the way that they're maybe interacting with you, or their facial expression. You don't get that on the phone. Now, you can't assume that they're loving the conversation or that they're hating the conversation, but you need to kind of match their tone and their tempo. If they're busy, you're busy too. Let's get through this quickly. If they want to talk, you can sit down on the phone with them all day. Those are just some important tips and tricks to keep in mind as you go into your intro. But we know that, right now, you might not be doing 100% cold calling. You might also be calling your customers. And so we wanted just to kind of outline some key differences and different mindsets to take on as you're going into cold versus warm introductions right now.
Yeah, and from the cold side, just comparing one versus the other, one, you don't have a contact name on a cold versus contact name. No previous conversation versus a conversation was held. No intelligence to some sort of intelligence about their operation. No credibility versus credibility. Regardless, the same structure of the introduction is still there. Introduce yourself, purpose, credibility, but credibility kind of changes. I'm establishing credibility of who my company is to say we've been in business for X years, we do this, versus credibility of they already know me. I'm going to reference our previous conversations and a little bit of intelligence that they provided me from our last conversation. Then you can engage into that contact.
Yeah.
So we get through the introduction. We go into the discovery side. As Lauren mentioned, this is the meat of the conversation. This is effective questionings, asking open-ended questions, really just trying to get an idea of what they have inside of their operations. And I mentioned earlier that my strategy of building a pipeline was, tell me about your forklifts. I was trying to get 2-3 time frames. And this is how I did that. What type of forklifts do you have? When's the next time you're looking to buy? Who does the PMs? How often do you get the PMs done? When do you rent? Those are the types of questions. And your goal every single call is what products and service can I offer and how can I match that to them, then get the time frame with it.
Yeah, and this is really how we like to look at it from the structure of the majority of our material handling calls that we make. So we need to first sit down and identify the main and primary products and services. And so for every dealer, this is slightly different. But for, I'd say 99.9% of the dealers that we work with, they're not just offering forklifts. They're not just offering parts and service. They've got multiple lines of equipment, specialty equipment, sweeper scrubbers, aerial equipment, some even lines in construction equipment. You've got, basically every kind of service and part you could handle from a capital equipment perspective. And then your warehouse and allied products, obviously racking and automation are 2 of thousands of products that you could be positioning for your customers. Overwhelming them is not the way to go. As Jason said earlier in the call, you calling and trying to give your credibility that you offer all of these, different products and that, look at this array of services, that is not going to really help you. So you need to focus in on what are your mains and how are you going to navigate through the call with those services and products in mind. And so as Jason said, using the who, what, where, when, why, and how questioning here is so important. I'm going to run through some example questions as we're looking at equipment. Oh, what type of material handling equipment do you use? What types of applications do you have in your facility? How do you typically purchase lifts? How often do you purchase? How often do you rent? When's the next time you'll rent? When do you build your budgets? Those are all great questions surrounding equipment. Who do you utilize for service? Do you like working with them? Why do you like it? How often do you service? Are they doing PMs or are they doing full maintenance? Can you tell me what you guys do in-house? Where do you buy your parts? Really digging in. The more questions that you ask like this, they're just going to give you more and more information along the way. And then warehouse allied products, again, you could ask questions here until the day goes long. What type of racking do you utilize? Why hasn't your company implemented automation? What are your plans for combating changes in the workforce? There's a lot of stuff that you could really dig in. And I know what I've covered in a lot of the who, what, where, when, whys in the last other service offerings. They might be a little low level. They might be more of an introductory conversation. But when you get your customers on the line, you can start to ask them about their challenges in their operation, what they're being held to, what's their bottom line, how are they combating changes in the workforce, how are they combating competition, etc. But anyways, the part of the key here is not making this call feel illogical or disjointed. You don't need to run the conversation in the way that you're inflexible. So what we really teach our team is identifying the product and service that has the most potential for opportunity, and then you start from there. And you got to be flexible as the conversation goes on. Move to another product and service that has more the second potential for you, and so on and so forth. It's got to be a conversation. It cannot be a survey, or you will lose that person. And you're also not going to enjoy yourself because you're sounding and talking like a robot.
Yeah, and just to capitalize off that, some tips to think about as you go through that. As Lauren mentioned, some examples, but be intentional, right? You're there to help. You're there to be a resource for these guys. Express that. Have a healthy mix of open and closed-ended questions. And I know Lauren provided a few examples there, but you can't ask all open-ended questions. I've never seen that, but from the open-ended, closed-ended, the healthy mix, an example would be, who does your service? Are you happy with them? Closed-ended questions is the yes, no. Oh, you're not happy. Why aren't you happy? Avoid survey. I know it seems like a lot of products and services. You don't want to go through what forklifts do you have? How many do you have? What's the brand? What's this? Your open-ended questions, you want them talking. What type of trucks do you have out there? Who knows where that goes, right? Oh, I have five Cats or 5 Heisters, 5 Toyotas out here that's all electric on cushion tires. Wow. That just answered a lot of the questions for me, right? And the moral of this is just leverage the questions with the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Match the needs to the solution.
Yeah, I've heard so many veterans pick up the phone, 10 years, 15 years in the industry, and not having done a lot of phone work, or having not done it lately. And they, they pick up, and they might even say this to a receptionist: "I'm just calling to see if you guys have any needs I can help out with right now." Well, that just basically ended the conversation for you. You really did yourself a disservice there. I'm calling to learn about your organization. I want to better understand your needs at a whole. I want to better understand how I can help you in the future. So get all that stuff, needs right now. Call and see if you have needs. Call and see if there's anything I can quote you. Just take that completely out of your vocabulary. And that's going to really pull us into this next portion, which is about listening techniques. And it's not rocket science, and it's not a shock to anyone that calling and prospecting is not about talking. It's about listening. You want to be talking 25% of the time or less. You want your customer, your prospect, to be talking 75% of the time or more. Jason, do you want to take them through the differences in active and passive?
Yeah, so I've worked with people, and this goes to the previous slide where we talk about being intentional. When I mean intentional, you want to listen, you want to understand. So passive listening is the opposite of that. You're really just not really paying attention to what they're saying or processing what they're saying and understanding that. On the flip side, active listening, you want to understand the meaning of really what's going on. You want a deeper level of understanding of how they feel, why they do these types of things.
Yeah, I think, everybody can kind of think to their personal life for a minute as to listening and active listening versus passive listening. So I always think of it the last time I was in an argument with someone, which was so many years ago, because I'm so easygoing. Everybody likes to talk to me. But in an argument with my family or my brother or my significant other or whomever, even just a heated conversation, you know the type of person that is completely passive. You're opening up, you're telling them your needs, you're telling them maybe why your feelings were hurt, you're being vulnerable, and that person's just sitting there waiting for you to finish so that they can put their 2 cents in. That's not the type of salesperson that you want to be. You want to listen to your customer, you want to let them feel vulnerable and open. You called to talk with them. You didn't call to talk at them. And that's something really important to keep in mind when you're making business development calls or customer check-in calls at this point, especially now with the current climate and everyone's really feeling the pressure. You're calling them to help. You're calling them to listen to their needs.
And the first thing you're listening for, and there's 2 things as you're listening to these individuals, there's 2 things you're listening for. pain points or buying signals. On the pain point side of things, we kind of define this as a problem the customer is having, right? So example would be, we're not happy with our current provider. You got to capitalize on that. Get an understanding of why. Oh, you're not happy with ABC company? Use open-ended questions. What aren't you happy with? Why aren't you happy with them? Respond to them. That way you can then flip your product or service to get yourself in the door from there. Or, yeah, we use this company, response time is slow. I couldn't tell you how many sales reps I've worked with or trained, or even SDRs that I worked with and trained that kind of let that slide. The response time is slow. That's a pain point of not being happy with the current provider as well, right? Acknowledge that ABC's response time is slow. You know, what's the response time like? Then pivot to yours. We typically have a 2-hour response time. That is our motto. So listen for those pain points. That's going to allow you to get your foot in the door.
Yeah. And, as you're calling current customers, I'd like to say that it wouldn't be the case for anybody, but you're probably going to stumble upon some pain maybe that they have with you, that they have with your organization. And we train our sales development reps on the phone to not accept blame, especially because we're not the person that's conducting business with them. We don't know if there's thousands of dollars in outstanding service invoices, or if a customer has really hurt you as an organization, or done something that they shouldn't have with a piece of rental equipment or something of that nature. And so you might call in and you might end up getting snapped at. You might call in and you might end up hearing a lot of pain that you didn't expect, that you didn't want. And you might be avoiding certain customers for that reason. And I'd encourage you to kind of put that behind you and go into the call and accept the fact that you might get that blame. Now, that doesn't mean you need to accept the blame. You can still acknowledge it. You can still give them that feeling of forward movement without saying sorry. And so you can, say, hey, I hear you. I really appreciate you sharing that information with me today. I love to say, thanks for being so candid with me. Thank you for really not holding any punches, because that's the way that I like to do business. Well, it is the way I like to do business, but it's also what the customer is going to want to hear if they're mad at you. And so, use an example like, thanks for telling me that. Let's figure this out together. I'm disappointed that you're unhappy, and I want to make things right, and I want to move forward and continue our relationship together. What do we need to do to get there? And so right now people are frustrated. You might pick up the phone and they're not even frustrated at you, but they're gonna take it out on you, unfortunately. And so you should be equipped and ready to go with that type of terminology and those types of statements. Thank you so much for telling me that. I really appreciate it. I hear you, and I want to figure this out with you. And so that is my biggest tip when it comes to pain, and getting out of a painful situation with a customer of yours is almost a bigger win than bringing on a new customer, because of that loyalty that you've built, because of that experience that you went through. You are a problem solver for them. You provided them with solutions in a way out of the situation. And so it's actually a real opportune way to earn yourself some business back and some credibility back. And this is the other type of signal that we should be looking for, is buying signals, right? So everybody wants this one over the pain. We get that. Jason's going to talk with you about what is a buying signal, ways to identify, ways to respond. And I'm just going to come out with some additional examples as well. So go ahead, Jason.
So we define buying signal as someone that kind of stated there's a purchase, not maybe immediate, but could be down the road, right? So, and we rent during our busy season. I could tell you how many people I've worked with that never really pushed or defined it. They rent during their busy season. They don't have a need now. We're pipeline building, right? Acknowledge that. Oh, you rent during your busy season? When is your busy season? Let me get you some rental rates. And even something as simple as our truck is a little beat up. It's not running right now. Capitalize on something. I mean, that's on the service side of things. Well, it's beat up. What's wrong with it? Have you guys addressed that yet? When are you going to be looking into that? So you have to listen for those types of things, because what I found from a buying side, when calling, that people are always focused on the now. What I mean now, am I buying this or fixing this week, next week? They're not really thinking about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months from now of what they're doing. So when you hear these types of statements being made, push for those time frames, further define those things.
Yeah. And in responding to buying signals, is kind of an interesting conversation. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in terms of the close. But you can really take advantage of it the second that you hear a buying signal, and then open up to lead into those other buying signals as well. So I learned about how you buy batteries. I'd like to learn about how you replace tires. I'd like to come up with a plan to stay in front of your buying signals. Again, you're kind of, helping them to understand that you are there building a future plan of action, really showing them that you have a vested interest in what they need, not just today, but every day in the future. And sometimes it's not the signal you want. We get that. Sometimes like a dipstick for a service, something of that nature. You're just not feeling like that's a whole lot of bang for your buck. Right now is a very interesting time. What is a lot of bang for anybody's buck? I think anybody will take pretty much any sale they can get. And that means kind of opening up your current talk track. And I'd encourage you, for those of you who might be a CSSR, a PSR on the service side, and you don't sell equipment, and vice versa, or if you're a warehouse specialist or a solution specialist, that you start to kind of open up your efforts to your current customers that you're calling and your prospects, to include other areas and other solutions of your organization. Now is the time to work as a team. I know certainly I felt like my team at Concept was collaborative, and the last few weeks of being at home, working on Microsoft Teams, really everybody's getting in the trenches with one another. I know that's what's happening at the dealerships that we work with. They're very family-like environments. They're all about helping each other, increasing sales, making those goals. And so I'd encourage you to start to open up your conversation for those who are really just selling one product line or one specific area. Help out your neighbor, bring in a different rep, bring in your specialist, and get a better understanding of your customer, and be that main point of contact for your customer as well. So buying signals is one of the heaviest meat parts of this whole conversation. You got to get that next purchase time frame. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense to call back. You're wasting a call. You're taking advantage of the time that they might have on the phone right now. And again, not in an opportunistic way, but in a way that's of service to them. So with buying signals, with pain points, all of those different parts of the call, there's going to be objections. You might get it the second that you say your name. You might get it after you introduce your organization and the purpose of your call, and you might get it way down the line when you actually go to try to set up a next step of sorts. And so we're going to go through some, common objections here that we've learned that will help you. And some of these, again, might not seem too wild or too unheard of to you, but we're hoping that we can give you some better strategies to overcome them.
And we've gone through a lot from the conversation so far. We've gone through introducing yourself. We've gone through some of the meat of the conversation, the open-ended questions, right? We've gone through listening. We have to actively listen. We have to listen for those pain points. We have to listen for those buying signs. But the objection piece is really what I've noticed or seen, where people kind of, they tap out, they give up once they hit those things. So we're going to cover 4 different types: the brush off, competition, procrastination, and budget. But I'll tell you this, the strategies to overcome them is the same. And keep in mind, these guys were not expecting your call. when you called in. So, I mean, you can get an objection. Yeah, they're busy. You just pull them out from whatever they were doing. Maybe they were under a truck. Maybe they were driving a forklift. Who knows? You just pulled them out from what they were doing. So it's okay to continue that conversation. Restate your purpose, return to your qualifying questions, and set the expectation. But the first objection we're going to cover, the brush off.
Yeah, before we do that, I did want to say one thing. Objections are awkward. Talking with someone that clearly doesn't want to talk with you, it's awkward. It's why a lot of reps don't like cold calling. It's why a lot of people are calling only their current customers. It's just as awkward for the decision maker if you throw it back on them, right? So if they're going to give you an objection and you're trying to overcome it, it's awkward for them to give another objection and another objection. And you'll definitely get those guys and gals on the phone, don't get me wrong. But just human nature is that you're trying to open up the conversation and they're trying to close it down. And if you're coming at it in a way, again, that's not sharky and that's more resource-like, it's really a good tactic to utilize that next step question, restate your purpose. Don't let them, put you in a corner. Asking more questions are definitely going to help you break through. So now I'll turn it back to you, Jason. Sorry about that. We're going to go into the brush off.
Yeah, and a brush off, I know you guys are looking at this going, yeah, I've came across this a bunch of times, right? And it's essentially someone not interested in speaking with you at the moment, right? Just send me an email with some information. Ooh, I've heard that a lot. Let's rewind to how we get past that. Restate your purpose. Again, you caught them off guard. I mean, this is one of the main objections I've seen. Send me an email. Well, great. Well, honestly, I was just calling to further introduce myself, get familiar with your operations, and position ourselves as a resource. Ask the question, what type of equipment do you guys use out there? I don't have a need for anything right now. We're not buying anything. I get that. But remember, our mindset is pipeline building. You want to come in here 3, 4, 5, 6 months from now and have your pipeline set up. Oh, I get it. I get you're not buying anything. However, I'm just calling you to further introduce myself, learn more about your operations, and position ourselves as an option or resource when you do look at these things. Tell me about the equipment that you guys use out there. And it's really the same thing, right? They're not interested. Take control of that conversation. Give them the purpose. Again, we covered this at the beginning. Purpose is key inside of the prospecting call.
Yeah. We hear, I think from kind of newbies on the floor when they're coming into the sales development role and they're getting their first objection. A lot of times they'll get a decision maker on the line or maybe a pretty mean gatekeeper. And the gatekeeper or the decision maker will say, I don't need anything right now, or I don't have any needs. I'm not interested. And without being rude, you kind of have to ask yourself the question, like, well, interested in what? What kind of needs? Because I haven't even told you the reason why I'm calling today. And so, of course, don't want to be rude, don't want to be sarcastic, but say, well, I'm not calling to sell anything. I'm not calling because you don't have a need today. I'm trying to figure out, how we might be able to do business again. There have been times where you got a really tough decision maker on the phone where they're just like, just listen, I don't need anything. Don't call me. And the fact of the matter is that you have time, you have a quota to meet, you have sales that you're trying to achieve. And so why would you want to call them back as well if they don't have that need? So doing yourself a favor and really opening up the conversation to the best of your abilities will let you know whether or not you should call that person again. If they don't have any needs, is it because they don't even utilize your equipment, that they don't even utilize your services? Or is it because they're just trying to shut you down? So that's just something to keep in mind on your end of things as well. If your time is valuable, let's not call people back who don't even utilize or even have a fleet or something of that nature that isn't to your liking or isn't going to allow for you to get sales in the door. So the next one's competition. And of course, I'm sure you guys feel this all the time, and you are deflecting against your competitors who are trying to get in, whether that be on the phone, in person, through marketing. And so When you call in and you talk with someone, or even when you're physically with someone, the customer mentions that they're already working with someone for that product or service. We already use ABC Company for that. I've used them for years. Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that you have a provider that you're happy with. Why are you happy with them? We use ABC Company for that. Oh, is that because you're brand loyal, or is it because you really like the application of that type of equipment inside of your facility? Have you tried a demo of another type? When's the last time that you reorganized or re-racked your layout? Is the equipment that you're working on right now that you have from that provider you like really getting the job done? And obviously there's a million questions that you can ask about the competition. I know being a secondary resource, even as a marketing agency, even as a sales development agency, it's a good place to be. You know who they're using, you know why they like working with them. You have a good understanding of what their needs are and their potential needs will be in the future, and you're there in second line. And of course, being too late to a quote in that realm is frustrating, like a 3 quote for purchasing to get that through. But if you're constantly number 2 and you're still knocking on their door, when the time comes around to take a quote for a fleet replacement or for new leases or for service, they're going to take you more seriously than they would if you just call and accept the fact that they have someone that they're working with and then expect that they're going to continue to work with them forever. Things change. We're starting to see some loyalties change too in terms of customers per brand and customers per dealer. Some people are obviously focused on money only, but most people are focused on the right solution for them.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because I speak to employees daily about that specific objection competition, and they come to me, they go, Jason, I'm happy. They keep telling me they're happy with XYZ company, and I go, oh, okay. Who do they use for rental equipment? Does that company offer rentals? Oh, they don't? Oh, wow. Does that company offer warehouse allied products? Well, they don't. And you have to look at it like that. And we talked about the preparing for the call, really outlining the company, meaning really outlining your products and service that you can offer. Even if they use that company, still paint the picture of that profile before you move on. Maybe there's something else you can offer just to get your foot in the door, then eventually make your way in, right? The next one is just procrastination. This is the next objection. And really, those are people that try pushing you off to a later date. Hey, call me back in 3 months. Go back to your purpose. Okay, I can call you back in 3 months, but really, I'm calling you today just to learn more about your operations, just to are we even a fit as a company, and could we even be a resource? Tell me about your equipment out there. It's the same thing I keep saying, right? I'm taking control of that conversation. I'm in the middle of something big. Can you call me back? Yeah, I'd love to call you back later. But again, really, I just wanted a brief moment of time to get familiar with your operation, right? And I know sometimes they may push you back, and someone may be, okay, can you call me back later? They really are busy. I get that. Just figure out the time to call them back then, or you can pin them down. Well, when should I call you back? What day? What time? Take it to the next level.
Why am I calling you back? Call me back in 3 months. Well, is there something going on in 3 months, or is that the time frame that you like to evaluate your provider? I'm in the middle of something. Can you call me back? Okay, yeah, when's a good time? Are you typically in meetings on Monday mornings? Monday morning at 9 a.m.? Is that when you do your ops meeting for the week? You can start to dig in, learn a little bit more right then and there. Procrastination is something you'll definitely encounter right now, I would say, because of a lot of folks, having either a really high demand in their business or having a lot of time on their hands. There's not as many procrastination excuses to get you off the phone and objections to get you off the phone as there typically are. And so I would try to take, again, not opportunistic advantage, but advantage of this, that they might have a little bit more time to talk right now. They might have a schedule that's not as challenging as it typically is, or it might be the total opposite, where you could start to text them, you could start to give them a ring before or after hours if that's a better time for them. So be flexible and be open. And I know that all the salespeople that I know that we work with in material handling, they work 24 hours a day. If there's a problem, they're on it. They have to retain that customer. They have to grow with that customer. We know that level of dedication, and so you can definitely apply it to this objection, especially right now, pretty timely. And then the last one is budget. And budget is probably going to be the largest objection for you right now. The customer brings up the fact they don't have the budget for the purchases. We don't have the budget for these kind of purchases. Things are on hold right now. We don't know when we'll get money back. We've lost business, or we're not working on a budget, or budget hasn't been approved. It's been frozen. There's going to be a whole bunch of excuses surrounding this area from an objection perspective, and they're going to be true. So the first thing we have to know is we don't have the budget for those types of purchases. Well, what types of purchases are you talking about, right? So that's important too. These objections could come really early in the call, or they could come really late in the call. If it comes really early, we got to figure out, well, what kind of purchases do you think I'm calling about? If they're coming really early in the call, well, when do you expect for your budget to be reevaluated? Without the COVID crisis, when do you typically budget? When are your budgets approved? Do you need quotes to prepare budgets? I want to help you get the most money that you can for your operation so that you can work most efficiently, get the most production from your team. So budget is definitely something that we coach our SDRs on. It's part of the way that we score the qualified leads that we're sending over to the team, as part of a budget scoring based on time frame as well. And so right now you're going to have this come up a lot. I just start to ask questions about it, and again, show that empathy. Yeah, I totally understand. Budgets are frozen all over the place. When your budgets are turned back on, or when you're turned back on and you're going to have to figure out how to rework your facility, rework your team, might be some changes to your workforce. I want to be there. Let's talk about it now. So those are good things to keep in mind, because you will have this come up. It's going to be the number one thing, and I've heard it from all the reps I've talked to in the last couple of days. No one's got anything going on. That's what I keep hearing. Nobody's got anything going on, and that's true to a certain extent with those non-essentials. But they will have something going on in the future. Get in front of it now. Even if plans change, you're there ahead of time. So we covered the objections piece. We're going to move into, again, one of the probably the most important parts of the call, the close. Jason, I'll turn it over to you. This is obviously quite important. Right now, it's a little bit different, though, because of the inability to physically see people. So we're going to walk you through some things for future pipeline building, and also some ways to kind of work around that.
So we've had this in-depth conversation, and we have to get off the phone or close. And this has been a struggle I've encountered working with employees. There was an opportunity. How do I get off the phone? What do I say? So we kind of broke it down into no opportunity, future opportunity, or immediate opportunity. If there's not an opportunity there, set an expectation still, right? There's no need for product service. Let them know what you're going to do. I'm going to send you my line card over, and I'm going to give you a call here in 2-3 months, this specific day, this specific time. If it's a future opportunity, maybe it's not an immediate need. Maybe you find that it's going to be year end, or maybe 2021, they're going to be replacing something. Let them know what you're going to do still. Set that expectation. Thank you for your time. I'm going to get my line card to you. I'll reach out to you in the fall or in the winter to discuss this specific product. Immediate opportunity. This is where you have to close on someone and let them know that expectation. Lauren mentioned during the time, maybe in-person meeting is possible. There's possibility it may not happen. However, if it's a webinar, if it's a parking lot meeting to review, you can do that. But one thing I will mention is I've seen sales reps over the years struggle on that mid-conversation closing. It's kind of mentioned up there, but what I mean struggle on that is once they uncover a need, they get off the phone and close the opportunity. They don't really paint the picture of that client or that company. It's okay to close mid-conversation, acknowledge what they have, right? And still push to continue that conversation. They have the need to buy a new unit. Great, continue that call. By the way, what other types of equipment do you have? continue pushing through that conversation as best as possible.
Yeah, I've got a great example of that mid-conversation close. So I was actually out visiting a dealer. We were doing some training, and we were following up on an old lead from marketing where someone was trying to sell them a forklift. Okay, and so it called into this lead, and in fact, yeah, this guy still had not sold his forklift. This dealer had interest in purchasing it. They also wanted to go check out other equipment, and the rep did a wonderful job in setting up the appointment. Got himself a next step, established the prospect and customer on the other line was very excited about it. And he was about to get off the phone, and we were all on speakerphone in the room. I was shaking my head, waving my hands in the air, and I'm writing on the whiteboard, and I said, ask more questions. How often do you buy equipment as you're selling this piece off? Are you replacing to your fleet? Why are you selling this? Was this not a fit? And so I'm scribbling down these, and he ultimately opened up and asked, well, I know you're selling this. Are you going to be adding to your fleet to replace this? And little did he know, he ended up stumbling his way into a pretty big opportunity for a new truck, and a truck that wasn't standard, because that's why the truck didn't work in the first place. They were selling almost a brand new truck because it just didn't fit their organization. So that mid-conversation close, it's so important. You got to stop yourself. I think when I was a business development manager on the phone, I had one of my Post-it notes, many of them, on my computer telling me to not stop. So you get the appointment, you set that expectation, but you've got so much more time if they're willing to give it to you. And I will say, Jason talked about staying in touch, setting those tasks, staying in front of them. To me, this is a test of your attention. This is a test of your customer service while they're a prospect. So show them how you service your customers. Show them how attentive you are. If you say you're going to follow up, you better do it, because that's what they expect if they're going to be working with you. So a good tip as well, just to keep in mind, is if they say, yeah, I'm going to be making a purchase in January, well, you definitely don't want to call them in January. You want to call them in December. Depending on, of course, the lead time with your piece of equipment. But call a few weeks in advance. All they might have to do is push you off for a couple weeks, but now you're top of mind again. So calling a little bit ahead and setting that task a little bit ahead of the actual need is really important for the close as well. But here's the most important part, and I'll let you take this one, Jason.
Expectation, confirmation, expectation. And I remember I was working with a sales rep, and they came to me one day and said, hey, I went and saw this facility. The person didn't remember I was supposed to come out there. My comment to that sales rep was, well, what was the last thing you said? He's like, well, I confirmed the appointment. So I teach people daily on the close, always finish with the expectation. And many of you may have heard this, but when you always say, what's the last thing to remember? It's the last thing someone said, right? So expectation, confirmation, expectation. What I mean is, once you confirm that lead, get the expectation. Hey, I'm going to send you a line card. I'll be out there next Wednesday, 2 p.m. to go over your new truck. Confirmation. That was part of it. The new truck that they're going to be looking for. Confirm the address. Set the expectation again. I appreciate your time, John. Again, I'll be out there Wednesday, 2 p.m. That was the last thing I said, and I'm hoping that's the last thing that's on their mind.
Yeah. And right now, physical appointment might not be something that you're setting. You might not even be finding yourself with a need, but that doesn't mean that your close has to be short-winded. It doesn't mean that your close can't be well-rounded in conversation. It can't, it doesn't mean that you can't recap things. That's almost more the time to do it when there's not that next step need is, okay, well, I certainly appreciate your time, Jason. It was really nice talking with you today. First of all, I'm happy to hear you're well. Secondly, I'm happy to hear that you guys are still up and running. And I'm going to stay in front of you and do my best to give you a ring every other week or once a month, like you talked with me about today, so that I can stay in front of your needs. Thank you so much for the time. Thanks for being a customer of ours. Thank you for your partnership. This is a time where letting go of any ego that you might have in association with your customers. I know every decision maker, every customer of yours is not, sunshine and rainbows to work with on any given day, especially now. A little bit of empathy, a little bit of humanity is definitely going to go a long way right now. And so that is really going to bring us to talk through, lastly, some common pitfalls and bad habits. So we went through and we have basically got you prepped for a call. We talked about the tech, the resources, the outline, the mindset. We went through the call itself, from talking with the decision maker and getting past that gatekeeper really to even get there, to introducing yourself, positioning your products and services, but learning about their organization, learning about their needs, their facility, and then positioning yourselves for a future resource. You learned about overcoming objections. You learned about listening for buying signals, listening for pain points, closing. I know there's been a lot. There's hopefully some takeaways. I hope you have several takeaways from today, but we're going to go through some common pitfalls and bad habits before we wrap things up. And like I said, the question bar is open. I'm not sure that we're going to have time to answer these questions while on the call today, but I have a log as to who's asking them, and I will be following up with you via email if you do have those. So you can feel free to have them start pouring in as we go over the common pitfalls and bad habits portion.
Yes. So as we look at here, this is kind of a head start for you guys, or a cheat sheet. This is 17 years of common bad habits that we found from sales reps over the years on the phone. Leader-need approach. This is one of the biggest things and one of my pet peeves for when I'm working with sales reps. You're always worried about the need now. You're not worried about building your pipeline. So you're calling saying, hey, you looking to buy anything today? No, I'm not. Again, build your pipeline. These guys are not thinking today. They're not thinking a week, 2 months. Focus on building that pipeline. Lack of structure. And I'm not saying be scripted. I'm not saying read verbatim. What I'm saying is have a game plan. We mentioned creating an outline, right? Stay focused on moving through those product service. Have your structure in place. I'm going to pivot from this product or service to this product or service. Go through your structure. Not making the most of attempted calls. Every call is not going to be an opportunity. We went through the numbers. I shared with you 80 to 100 calls a day here at Concept, 10 to 15 conversations, 3 to 4 SQLs. Not every call is a lead. However, every call you can gather a puzzle piece. So when you get off the phone, you're like, man, I didn't get a lead this time around. That's okay. Did you get a name? Did you get an email? Did you uncover who they use for forklifts? Did you uncover some sort of trend? Make the most of every call that you make. Build that puzzle piece by piece. Not presenting or grouping all products and services. Huge bad habit. So a lot of people, they will go in and they'll say, just talk about specifically the forklift. We talk about the importance of prepping and writing down all your products and services. Don't give up if there's no need for the first or second product. Get your 5 no's, work for it, right? Get a time frame for all those. And don't group those products together. Big, big bad habit. I remember I used to work QA here at Concept a little bit, and we'd go in and tap into some of the calls, and I'd listen to people, and they would come to me and say, hey, Jason, I'm not getting opportunities. And every time when I listened to their calls, it was them grouping products at the end. Hey, as far as forklifts, rentals, tires, racking, do you have any needs there? You earned yourself 1 no. Ignoring buying signals. I mentioned the importance of that, right? And earlier in active listening, I used a great example, busy season. How many of us actually ignore that and just move? We take it as a loss. Push through those buying signals. Get a time frame. Focused on building your pipeline. Not assumptively closing or suggesting they don't have a needs. Hey, with your forklift, you're probably not buying, right? You just gave yourself a no. That's one of the last things you want to do. Where do I fit? When do I fit? Break down every product and service of what you offer. Work for that time frame. Not setting tasks or KPIs. And I mentioned this earlier. I know that many of you can't do 80 to 100 calls a day, and it's nothing on you. You are busy. When I was doing new employee training, I used to bring up this slide introducing the concept, and I brought up this cartoon character. I used to call him Super Sales Rep, and it was this salesperson juggling so many balls, and it was breaking down the travel, the lunchtime, working with current customers, doing the bid process. I get it, but what I'm saying from the KPI side, set something that's realistic to you inside of your day. If you could do 2 hours of uninterrupted time or 1 hour, keep in mind, set your goals for 10 to 12 calls during each hour that you're able to do it uninterrupted, right? Because 20 calls, I'm telling you, that's going to get you at least one appointment or one opportunity.
Yeah. And so hopefully these are some good takeaways for you guys, and in addition to other things that you've learned while working with us today. This is the time to dig in and hone in on your skills, like we talked about, your prospecting skills, your customer service skills, figuring out a different platform and a different way to communicate with your customers, working in your CRM. It's a unique time, and we know it's a challenging time, and so that's why we wanted to get out in front of our partners and other material handling dealers to help you guys with what we know best, and that's the top part and the middle part of the funnel, where you guys are really focused on that close. And so we have no doubt that that's what you do well on a daily basis. We wanted to show what our bread and butter is, and hopefully bring you some success and some future opportunity. I'd encourage you to practice this today while it's fresh. Start, as Jason said, today for an hour. Tomorrow for 2. Build yourself up if you have the time to do that. And then after this is all over and we get back to day-to-day interaction with our sales, with our customers in person, remember this, because you can be doing it all along the way. Take a half an hour a day to start doing some prospecting to make your life easier in the future. So first of all, thank you everyone so much for joining. Thanks again to Mahita for helping us to promote this. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you to our customers who have joined us today for your continued partnership and support. It's been a real pleasure presenting to you guys today. Jason and I have been hyped up for a few days to get ready for this. Again, we appreciate your time. We're here to help. My contact information is on the screen. Feel free to reach out with questions. You do not need to be a partner of ours to get your question answered by any means. So I'm happy to get on the phone, happy to do some email correspondence, whatever it is that you guys need. We'll be sending this recording out from today if you have team members that you'd like to participate that weren't able to make it. But I hope everyone stays safe and healthy. I hope spirits are kept high through this challenging time, and hope everybody has a great weekend as well. Thank you so much.